Welcome to Just Energy Radio with your host, naturopath and medical intuitive, Dr. Rita Louise. We have learned from Einstein's theory that matter and energy are one. Physicists believe that all systems in nature have their own particular way of vibrating. From the swinging of a pendulum to the waves of the ocean to the light that brightens the sky each day, each of these oscillates at its own unique rate. The same holds true for every thought, feeling, event, or word we speak. Each has its own frequency or rate of vibration. What many of us don't realize is when we take everything in our universe down to its simplest form, it is all just energy. Join Dr. Rita Louise on a journey through time and space where past, present, and future collide. Today, what you believe may be called into question. What we want to know is, who made up the rules? Be brave and step outside the box. We are about to turn our world upside down and venture into the unknown. Hold on. We are departing our own beliefs and entering alternative realms. Enjoy the possibilities.
Hello and welcome to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for tuning into the show today. This is our first show in 2012, and it looks like this year is going to be a great year as far as guests are concerned. But Happy New Year to you all, and just to let you know, this is the first show in our 5 years of doing this show, so please do go to the Just Energy Radio website, www.justenergyradio.com, and check out the other year's worth of archives, because I just feel so blessed in being able to have this show and the level, quality, and caliber of guests like the ones we're having today that come on to share their knowledge and expertise with individuals like you. Please remember, Just Energy Radio is brought to you by SoulHealer.com. That's my website that tells you about all the services I offer, including medical intuition evaluations, energy medicine healing, and clairvoyant readings. It's loaded with articles and products and all kinds of stuff, so please do go check it out. It's also brought to you by the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's AppliedEnergeticsInstitute.com, where you can learn to become a medical intuitive counselor, or energy medicine practitioner, all from the comfort of your own home. So today it's a pretty interesting mix. In the first hour, we're going to be speaking to Fiona Broome about the paranormal patterns of ghosts, a spooky show. And in the second hour, not so spooky, actually kind of on the other side of the spectrum, we're going to be speaking to Cash Peters about John of God. And so for those of you who don't know who John of God is, you're just going to have to hang around and wait to find out, because he's just an amazing, miraculous man, and I don't want to give away the secret. Anyway, let me tell you a little bit about Fiona and get her on the air, because she's a hoot. Anyway, for over 30 years, Fiona Broome has been an author, researcher, and paranormal consultant. An unabashed geek, Fiona analyzes and sometimes predicts paranormal activity. She's fascinated by the reasons why some places and objects, or the people around them, seem haunted and others aren't. Fiona's research and her contributions to over 15 books are always based in documented facts, history, and science. So please welcome to Just Energy Radio, Fiona Broome. Hi, Fiona. How are you?
I am doing great, and that was such a wonderful introduction. Thank you so much. And I'm excited about your second hour, too. That sounds really intriguing.
Thank you. You know, I don't know a whole lot about John of God, so I'm really I'm curious by the whole interview myself. I mean, yeah, so just hang on the line, and you can just listen into the second hour when we're done.
Absolutely.
Anyway, Fiona, you have been in the ghosty world, you know, before its inception. How did you get interested in the concepts of ghosts and paranormal activity in the first place?
I'm one of those people who, like a lot of people when they're kids, I loved ghost stories. And we lived in a house where there were these noises in the attic, and my mother kept saying, "Oh, no, it's squirrels." And I kept thinking, I don't think it's squirrels. And then when we were getting ready to move, the guy came in and did the house inspection. And, of course, it being me, I had to say, "Okay, did you find any squirrel stuff up there in the attic?" And the guy said, "What are you talking about? There's no evidence of any squirrels or any rodents up there whatsoever." And I just remember looking at my mom saying, "I told you so." So, I've just been very aware of things that would be described as ghosts since I was a kid, but my interests have spanned a wide range. It's ghosts, it's ESP, it's ley lines, it's fairies, and then there's the fact that I grew up in the halls of MIT, so I'm a real geek about this stuff. So it's kind of a quirky mix. So I'm always looking for the explanations that are more along the quantum lines, frankly, to explain what people call ghosts and how much of that is actually, frankly, dead people, as opposed to, is it fairies, which I do believe actually exist, and I don't mean just Tinkerbell things. I mean full-size and people-sized things and bigger. I think there's a lot that we don't know about that may be in our world, or it may be something in a parallel realm that we're perceiving at particular locations, and this is where that paranormal patterns thing comes in. At those locations, whether you call it the veil or the membrane or whatever, that it might be thinner there, so we are perceiving people or other entities that are alive and well, but because of the phenomena we experience on this side, we're calling them ghosts. So my spin on all of this is a little different from what many ghost hunters believe, and part of it is because I've been doing this for so long. I had to come up with other explanations because the plain old dead people stuck here thing just never really clicked with me as the 100% every single time answer.
I thought, however, that there really isn't any, and I'm just saying this in a very generic way, science to support ghost hunting, that, there is circumstantial evidence and personal experiences, but it sounds like what you're saying is that there's actually measurements and I'm not even sure what the right word is, that is starting to support what's going on.
There is a lot of physical evidence that something is going on. We can't prove that it's ghosts, but we can document that there is EMF activity that we can't find any source for it that makes any sense whatsoever. We have photographs where we've got stuff that people have been calling dust forever, and I did experiments for like 3 years trying to get dust to look like that and couldn't make it happen.
Are we talking about orbs?
We're talking about orbs. And, we've got a lot of physical evidence that documents unexplained phenomena that are occurring, and where we cannot make the actual scientific connection is saying, oh, yes, this is ghosts. But, yeah, there is hard evidence. Something weird is going on, and we don't know what it is.
Okay, I can live with that.
Yeah.
I'm like, this question. Let's stick with the orbs because the other question I had just left my mind.
Okay.
What do you think orbs are? I mean, there's a lot of people, you see the pictures up online or whatever, and there's, first it was like, oh, there was all ghosts in your house. Look, you're covered around with ghosts. And then the whole viewpoint in the ghost hunting community said, no, it's dust. So what have you uncovered in your research?
I have tried. I have my little Swiffer that I took out and shook in front of my camera in all different kinds of locations. I have dropped sand, dust, flour. I have kicked up dust. I have dropped pollen. I have dropped all kinds of things in front of my camera at varying distances from the lens. This involved sometimes dragging my husband out in the middle of the night to locations to just drop this stuff in front of the camera. But I have tried to get this to look anything like the orbs that we see in many photographs. And while there are cases where you can see the yellow dot in the middle and it's pollen, or you can see the little winged thing that, no, it's not a fairy, it's a mosquito. You can see those things in the picture. Trying to get stuff that looks like the orbs that we get in these orb pictures, it's really hard to get a convincing one. And I used to think a lot of them were simply reflected light. And while there are things that will go on inside the camera where the light is refracted that can create an orb effect, again, it's very, very hard to make that happen, a lot harder than I expected it to. So when I was writing one of my recent books, Ghost Photography 101, which I should let people know there's going to be a second edition very soon because I have a whole lot more information. I should have just waited to write that thing. But anyway, when I was working on that book, I found myself having to eat a whole lot of crow because for years I was one of those people that was going, yep, dust, smoke, reflected light, pollen. I just had all those snap answers until I deliberately tried to create the effects. And what I advise people now when they've got an orb in a photograph is to try and make it happen again with their own camera, because I can talk about my cameras, but no two cameras are the same. And so people need to try and see if they can duplicate it. Now, the orbs that we can't explain, which is, of course, where this question started, I don't think that they are necessarily ghosts themselves. I don't think the orbs are. My opinion for years, even before I got into the oops, it's not dust thing, I have believed that is a symptom of a paranormal event, that it's not the ghost itself, but in fact it is a blob of energy, which is just a highly technical term, you can tell, that is evidence that something is happening or is about to happen or has just happened, because we find a coincidence between when the orbs show up and when we record other phenomena like EMF spikes, like EVP, voice phenomena, electronically recorded. When we have other phenomena occurring, it happens around the same time that we see the orbs, but I just cannot quite get my head wrapped around the idea that the orb is the ghost itself. I just think it's an energy thing that we are seeing manifested as an orb.
Okay, so when we were, all right, for the listeners, Fiona and I met in, I have to sit here and think, Austin. It was Austin, right?
Yeah, it was Austin in October.
In October. And so there was a gentleman named David Roundtree who's been on the show before. Did you get a chance to talk to him much?
I talked to him a little.
I mean, because one of his theories, and I'm going to throw this back at you, one of his theories is that ghosts manifest through like this kind of wormhole-y event horizon thing, which really sounds like what you're kind of calling the orbs, like the orbs are the event horizon.
Yeah, I could believe that. I mean, we don't have enough proof to be able, we're kind of making it up as we go along. And that, of course,
don't all scientists?
Well, hey, absolutely. I think we're going to have to do a lot more research before we know what orbs are. I mean, I can tell you what orbs generally aren't, which is dust and humidity and, all these things. Convincing orbs. Okay, I can make orbs. That's not a problem. But to make ones that I look at in a photo and go, I can't explain that one, that's a lot harder than I thought to come up with a convincing orb. I thought you could Photoshop it. I thought you could do all this stuff. When I actually tried to do it myself, I couldn't. But, okay, so let's work with just the orbs that I look at and I go, I don't know. He could be talking in the same terms as I am. We just don't have any proof, and it's speculation, but I think we have to get the speculation out there and talk about it so other people are not taking time, reinventing the wheel. Instead, let's start from the point that we have orbs that we can't explain that could be that event horizon thing. It could be a wormhole thing. It could be just a spark of energy that's showing up. I don't know. But if we start from that point and say, okay, there are real orbs that aren't just dust, humidity, bugs, pollen, blah, 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 what are these particular orbs? And I really think that's the baseline we have to start with now, because this is a field that's got a lot of exciting potential, and it's still early days. And so let's not go back to okay, it's all dust, and then have somebody go, wait a minute, it's not all dust, and just reinvent the whole thing from there.
Mhm. I mean, one of the things I appreciate is that you're actually doing experiments and trying to research it versus just play with it and to get spooked or whatever.
Oh, yeah, I'm not interested in a good scare. I mean, I know there are a lot of people who go out just for the thrill of it, It's that adrenaline rush. They love it. And they don't want to know what the stuff really is. They just want that scare. They want that dude run moment. They want to be, just to feel the excitement. It's an adventure. I'm not in it for that. That's like, I passed that point years ago. Now I'm excited about what is this stuff really? What can we learn from it? And what kind of contact can we make with whatever it is that's sending this stuff in our direction?
Yeah. Well, let's kind of shift our focus here a little bit, because one of the books that I want to talk about, because you have so many ghost books that cover so many topics, but I think for a first show, one of the big questions I get from people is, how do you know if your house is haunted? Could it be squirrels in the attic? How do you make that separation between, is it haunted or is it something else?
Well, for me, it is very important that people don't start with the idea that it's haunted, but they rule out all the normal explanations. And there are one heck of a lot of normal explanations that you just wouldn't believe the phenomena that can occur as a result of a stair being a quarter inch off in height. The way that will disorient people and the stuff that they will sense as a result of that, the things that they will come up with as answers for why they're unsteady around that spot on the staircase. If you add in the fact that underneath a lot of staircases there will be wiring, it's a favorite place for electricians to put wiring that goes between the floors. And if that is not adequately insulated, you can have elevated EMF. And elevated EMF, which can be measured, frankly, a hiking compass, you can just take it there and see if the needle does something weird near the wiring, because that's, again, it's electromagnetic energy, so that's why a hiking compass will work. But anyway, you can have the wiring underneath the stairs, and if it's not properly shielded, a person can actually hallucinate. They can become nauseous. They can get headaches. They can get all kinds of stuff going on, and if you then have one step that's just off by a quarter of an inch, the combination is enough to scare the daylights out of people and make them think they've got a ghost. So this is why I put together essentially a checklist that was initially the list that we used when we did our investigations to rule out all the normal stuff first. And now I've released it. It's at my website, hollowhill.com. People can download a free basic copy of it. Then there's the printed book for people who want to have all the pictures and, paper and turn the pages and write little notes on it. That's available at Amazon.com. Or they can download the biggest edition of this, which is a Kindle, and that's at Amazon. And this is basically all the steps you go through to say, is your house haunted? And it covers everything from noises in the pipes to critters in your attic to wiring, the stair thing I talked about. In the Kindle edition, I talk about elevated levels of carbon monoxide because we're getting a lot of reports of that. And some of these things, like the carbon monoxide issue, like the EMF issue, these are things that can affect you physically and be actually dangerous to your health. So if you have any possibility of one of these going on, you really need to get it checked out. So don't go to the ghost thing first. Rule out the other stuff first.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this question so we can kind of set some boundaries here. I mean, we've done several shows on ghosts, but I'm going to have you explain the terms, but I'm just going to throw the question out. When you look at a haunting, do you accept residual hauntings as a haunting, or do you only classify a haunting as an act active haunting. And if you could explain what those two terms mean as part of your answer, that would be great.
Okay.
For the listeners.
I believe in that both are hauntings, because in both cases we perceive energy that we can't necessarily see, feel, hear. It's something that we cannot measure. Now, there is something that I consider residual energy, and it can linger for apparently a long time. And the best way I can describe it to somebody is you walk into a room where somebody has just had a tip of an argument, and you can still feel that air practically crackling. And even if the people have just left, you walk into the room and something doesn't feel right in that room. That is residual energy. And it seems to linger in some settings where violent events have taken place. The classic is, of course, Gettysburg. You have other locations, the Stanley Hotel, the Myrtles Plantation. In England, the Falstaff Experience in Stratford-on-Avon, the Tower of London in England. You have these places where dramatic events took place, and you walk in there and it just feels different. And even without knowing the history, you might come up with this feels weird to me. That is the residual energy haunting, which I do consider a haunting, as in it is just something that lingers and can affect you. Then there's active haunting or sentient haunting, and that is where there seems to be an entity that responds to things that go on in the environment. For example, you say to it, okay, knock once for no and twice for yes, and then you ask the question and something knocks on a wall, a table, the floor, the window. That is what I would consider an active haunting that seems to respond to different phenomena practically on command. But, of course, I never want to go down the road where we start treating ghosts like performers, unless they're in a theater, of course. But, but being serious, I never want this to be something where we're treating ghosts like unpaid performers, actually, where we're using them solely for entertainment and possibly at their emotional expense.
Well, that brings up a really good point. One of the things that I've heard recently has been criticism at ghost hunters for not helping spirits take their next step. In some cases, depending on the location, like you mentioned the Stanley Hotel, it has been compared to exploiting the ghost, like, well, you're going in there to be entertained by these spirits that are trapped. What's your thought on that whole idea?
That's got a lot of layers to it. Now, when I'm going in on an investigation, I have actually had people tell me, oh, well, we have a ghost, but you're not allowed to get her to move on. And it's like, okay, not doing that investigation. I have zero patience with people who think they have their captive trained ghost to entertain people. That is, to me, a vile concept. I have never heard of the Stanley Hotel or the Myrtles or any of these major attractions that people pay to go to and do investigations at. I've never heard of any of them putting up that kind of objection. And so then we get to the next question is, should you help the spirit cross over, or can you help the spirit cross over? The vast majority of cases that I've investigated, if there is something sentient there, it doesn't necessarily want to cross over. It's perfectly happy staying there, whether it's happy or miserable in appearance, that it just wants to stay there. If it wanted to cross over, if it could be helped to cross over, chances are 20 groups ago, somebody going in there and talking to it would have helped it cross over. So I don't know that there's a lot of merit to putting extended time into helping spirits cross over if you are a ghost hunter, because I classify ghost hunters, people who are investigating the phenomena, separately from those who are called spiritually, where it's a ministry for them to go in and try and help the spirit. And so I think we have to differentiate there. Now, when it comes to the TV shows, what you often do not see is that there will be after-show people who come in and help with the people who are living with the ghosts, as well as do what they can to help the ghosts. So I think we've got to take the TV show thing out of the mix. But in terms of ghost hunting groups that just go in for the thrill, I don't have a whole lot of patience with that one either. Nevertheless, with my own investigations, I have a rule with my team. If we're there to investigate, you get to work on this for 15 or 20 minutes and see if you can make some progress. But if you can't make progress with the ghost during that amount of time, we need to get back to the research. We cannot stop everything so that you can help the spirit. You make arrangements with the owner of the location to go back if that's what you want to do. So, we're kind of talking apples and oranges here, in my opinion. Did that hit on everything, or are there some aspects of this I should talk about more?
No, I was just talking about the ethical part. How I got into ghost hunting, and I don't know if I ever shared this with you, is that I was part of a house healing team.
Oh, cool.
I went to the Berkeley Psychic Institute, and so our thing was to go into homes and clear them. So there'd be ghosts and vortexes and all kinds of junk going on, and we would heal the home and the people in it. And but people aren't really aware that that's a service that you can get or have done. And so, I didn't ever do it. And so, but then the whole ghost thing came up, and they needed somebody to come in and do the psychic part. So it's like, okay, I'm not doing the healing part, but at least I get to go look and play and touch, which is okay.
I think it has to be an integrated kind of thing if you're going to be serious about this. If it's just thrill-seeking, go in and do that, I guess. I don't know. It's hard for me to really grasp what some teams are doing and what, if they just want a good scare, I don't have a lot of patience with it, so there we are. But for clearing, yes. I personally have done clearings of houses, but that's a totally separate deal for me. I go in, I have a singing bowl, I do the incense thing, I will talk to people about the feng shui aspects of the energy in their homes. We get, again, back to paranormal patterns, which I do tend to favor the Chinese belief that these entities go along straight lines, so that's where the feng shui starts coming in, and the energy flows. That's a totally separate practice as far as I'm concerned, and I would love to see more ghost hunting teams work with teams that then do the personal counseling with the people who live or work in the haunted location, and a team that does the healing for the entities that are there, that helps them come to terms with why they're staying here, because a lot of them seem to be, they've got things to resolve. It's not just they don't think they're dead, and frankly, I think a lot of them don't think they're dead. You've got to work with the individual spirit as an individual and not just make this blanket thing where, okay, we're just going to send them to the light. Well, some of them already seen the light. They're not interested. They still want to play in the big football game. You have to deal with this separately. And so I think that we have to talk in terms of ghost hunting separate from dealing with the living people who have issues with any residual energy or the trauma they've been through dealing with a ghost, and then addressing the spirits as a separate thing as well.
Well, and I think a lot of people that invite ghost hunting teams in kind of have an expectation, maybe that's not the right way to say it, that you're going to come in and help them do something with it, but that's really not the agenda of a ghost hunting team. They're kind of like the diagnosticians. They come in, they look, they evaluate, they give results, but they're not really set up to heal and fix. Exactly. And even within that category of ghost hunter, you do have, and I hate to keep hitting on this, but it is a reality today, people who've had enough of watching it on the TV, and they want the good scare themselves, and they call themselves a ghost hunting team. So they're not even there to diagnose, to come up with evidence, pro or con. They're just looking for the good scare, and then they're out of there. Then you do have more ethical ghost hunting teams who will present the evidence to the homeowner or the business owner and say, this is what we saw, this is what we didn't see. How do you evaluate this? How does this support
or refute things that you've experienced or that people have told you about. That, I feel, is what a ghost hunting team should be doing. And then based on the reaction of the person who is there, who does own the property or has legal responsibility for it, you decide on the next step in terms of dealing with their issues as well as the spiritual issues that are related. Now, there are people who do long-distance healings for locations. So even if you have a location that the owner says, nope, sorry, yeah, we're keeping our ghost, we like our ghost, whatever, there are people who specialize in a long-distance approach, working with the spirit at a distance, the same as you have people who can douse long distance. They can take a map and they can use the dowsing tool over the map and get the hot location. There are people who can heal long distance as well. So, we've got a lot of different things that can be done spiritually to help heal whatever is going on in the house. But I would say my first choice would be an experienced healing team coming in to the location after the ghost hunters have been there and have ruled out all the normal explanations and handled all the stuff that really is not spiritual. It simply is air in the pipes or exposed electrical wiring.
And I think there are a lot of teams out there that just don't, I'm going to say it this way, they're kind of ignorant. They think that you go in, you just take pictures, click, 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 set up a video camera, and that's it. There's not any more. You don't take measurements. You don't check window seals. You don't look for anything other than pictures and videos, and it's I don't understand that personally.
Well, they're using shows like Ghost Hunters and Heaven Help Us, Extreme Paranormal, as their teaching tools. All they know is what they've seen on TV. And if that's as far as you're going to go with it, you get your good scare, and after a few investigations, you've had enough and you stop. Thank heavens. I think that what really needs to be happening is more than just snapping pictures and taking video and deciding that these things are ghosts, but instead doing the process of elimination, like with my book, and since it's free, I don't feel as though that's a plug. Oh, you can get it at Google Books, too. It's a free download. Go through all the steps, the normal stuff, and rule that out before you ever get into the woo-woo, paranormal, whatever that could be going on. And then once you've ruled that out, then, you take these other steps, and that's what's responsible. Otherwise, frankly, I just want to send people to something like Disney World. Go to the Haunted Mansion, which actually there are great ghost stories at the Haunted Mansion and at Pirates of the Caribbean, by the way. If you want entertainment, go to a place that's providing entertainment. And let's not pretend that this is scientific or this is spiritual.
Okay, so let's say you've gone through this checklist and you believe you have a ghost in your house. So like the last house I lived in, thank God he lived outside, but we had a shadow spirit that lived in our backyard. And personally, I don't like them to hang around I don't like ghosts hanging around my house, even though I'm a ghost hunter. I'm kind of scared of them a little bit, which, anyway, I'm more scared of the dark. But anyway, but there's me, psychic, okay, I should be seeing this stuff. But when your kids start seeing it, when you have friends come over and they're seeing this guy in your backyard, it's like, it's just Tom. You know that it's just like not your imagination. It's not your imagination feeding off onto your kids. I mean, there are, I don't want to say complete strangers, but, other people that are coming to visit going, hey, there's some guy in your backyard. That's kind of validating that there's somebody back there for real. But is it bad to have a ghost hanging around? Are
I don't
there
think
friendly
so.
ghosts?
I think that spirits, regardless of what realm they're in, ours or perhaps in a parallel realm. I mean, it could be that person lives in a house or your backyard just happens to be one of those places where the veil or the membrane is thinner, and that person is alive and well in their own dimension, and you just happen to be perceiving them. They have just as much a right to be there as you do. So I don't think of them as dangerous. In fact, there are no conclusive, proved stories of a ghost killing anybody, despite what it shows in the movies. People can have prankish things happen with poltergeist stuff, but I don't believe that it's generally intentional injury that is inflicted, and even that is very, very rare. So I don't think that there's anything to worry about with this stuff. But I just feel as though they've got every right to be here, and for all we know, they are alive and well in their own time, and they're perceiving us as ghosts, and they're kind of creeped out by us, just as we're kind of creeped out by them. And the thing in your backyard, for all I know, that's a fairy, which is a totally different topic.
Oh, no, it was the owner of the house.
Oh, okay. You got one of those.
We had a manicured backyard. The bushes were all rounded. I mean, it was very manicured when we moved in, and then we moved in. And so half the bushes died, and my ex never mowed the lawn, and he wasn't really happy with us, and so he was always kind of like watching over the backyard, which is why he stayed there. He was really attached to it.
I swear, it's just one of those things that, whether you want to call it karma or that person's life challenges or, I guess, death challenges, where, people who are the equivalent of OCD landscapers, they're followed by people who are like, sure, good, close enough. I think it's an opportunity for them to experience what it's like on the other side on many levels.
Let's see. So let's say you do have a find out. Well, actually, I want to ask a different question.
Okay.
You said that the weird. Okay. So you watch like Ghost Hunters or some of these shows, and you hear these stories about people getting scratched, people getting, weird stuff happening to them. I mean, I've been doing this work, maybe not as often as you, but I've been doing this work for a really long time, going into homes, et cetera, et cetera. I haven't ever had anything happen to me. I just personally don't think it's that frequent. What's your opinion on it?
I don't think it's that frequent. I have been pushed and I've been kicked and I've had some physical phenomena. Not a whole lot, and it's even at the Myrtles, which was like the most extreme. Something pushed me when I was near the foot of the stairs. That was about as dramatic as it's ever gotten for me. Now, the scratching and things that go on with people, I'm going to say something really renegade that's going to offend a whole lot of people, but I have to consider the possibility that it is similar to some of the psychological stigmata that occur, where it is internally caused by the person, their expectations, and their wishes. Now, you might say, okay, well, why does it only happen at that particular location? It could be that particular location had a picture on the wall or a smell or a sound or something that inadvertently triggered. It acted as a trigger mechanism that then resulted in that person manifesting a scratch or something like that. Now, I'm not saying that the physical phenomena never happen. I just think that it is extremely rare, and particularly when it comes to injuries, I really have to look at the psychological factors very, very closely before I'm going to leap to the, oh, yes, it's a poltergeist. Now, when we're talking about poltergeists, there are a lot of people in this field who do not believe that poltergeists exist at all. And then there are people like Colin Wilson, who is one of my favorite writers, wrote a bunch of children's books in England, who believes that the energy comes from a spirit entity, but how it manifests is largely determined by somebody who is on a roller coaster emotional, hormonal thing, particularly teenagers and women of a certain age. And those are the reports that I get when there are physical phenomena going on that involve injury or somebody being genuinely frightened, is that it tends to match the psychological profile of a poltergeist experience as opposed to it being an angry ghost. So, we got a lot of layers to this, a lot of different aspects that that have to be considered. And I think anybody who comes up with a single pat answer to any of this, I'd love to see their evidence, but I really think we have to look at it from lots of different angles and not treat it as a one-size-fits-all answer.
Have you ever, I mean, I've heard the story about, the person's emotional energy, creating the poltergeist, and I could see that, in a telekinetic way. Have you ever heard, based on the people, that it could possibly be a third person, someone not in the household, projecting energy in to create physical disruptions in a household?
Oh, absolutely. I've seen documented evidence of poltergeist phenomena occurring when the living person who is responsible or assigned responsibility for what's going on has been as far as 6 miles away from the location. So we've got it documented to that extent. I don't know about any further away than that, but it seems reasonable to me if we can have people who are doing healings from hundreds of miles away, that we could have people who are inflicting discomfort from hundreds of miles away. That gets kind of scary when you start thinking about it. You get paranoid about that in a hurry, but I do believe that it can occur when people are not physically in the location making it happen.
Ooh. Okay. Well, no, I'll tell this story because I was living in this apartment, and I had, those shelves that you put on those hook things that hook into those bars on the wall?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Those basic
kind
of shelves?
Yep.
Yeah. And I used to have this poodle collection, 1950s spaghetti poodles, and I had, 4 shelves worth of poodles. And I came home one day, and the 2 middle shelves had flown off the wall. Literally, one of them was 4 feet away from the wall, on the sofa. All the poodles that were on there were all over the place. And yet, the ones that were on the bottom shelf were still standing.
Weird.
The shelf did not fall down. Okay, so that was weird enough, but there had been maintenance people in my apartment. I thought they did it. 2 weeks later, in the middle of the night, crashed. The same 2 boards had flown off the wall, were on the sofa. There was an end table, a big end table against the wall, and then the sofa, and they were on the sofa again, and the stuff on the bottom shelf, again, had not broken.
Yep.
And I know who did it.
Makes perfect sense to me.
La, 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 la. I'm like, hey, I got poltergeist.
Yeah. And it can happen. Right now I'm dealing with something similar, and that is we had 2 cats for years, and one of them passed on a little over a year ago, and the other one was a few months ago. And right around where they used to roughhouse is where my painting easel is. I'm actually an artist. I just got into this ghost stuff. That was never intentional. Anyway, my easel, where it is set up, is right around where they used to roughhouse. And from time to time, I'm having problems with the easel tilting over by itself. And so 2 days ago, I got a huge tube of primed canvas. This is a very heavy roll of canvas, and I put it right by the easel, propped against a window where it could not possibly fall over, and you know where this is going. Sure enough, I wasn't paying enough attention out here because I do come out and actually talk to the ghost cats. I feel like, it's bad enough to be a cat lady, but to be talking to ghost cats, that's kind of over the edge. But I came out here, and the tube had fallen over. It had taken out several of my paintings that were not within reach of the tube. The tube had to have gone up in the air to have actually knocked these paintings down. And it was just a mess. And it's like, you're telling me about your poodle thing happening a couple of times. I'm going, oh, please don't let the tube of canvas happen again. Don't let that go flying. That's a big, heavy piece of furniture practically. So, yeah, I blame it on the cats, which is very convenient. But, of course, I'm one of those ladies of a certain age. So, or it could be the bratty kid who just moved in next door, who's been having temper tantrums, and maybe he's projecting his energy over here. I don't know where it's coming from, but I think you have to treat it with a sense of humor, not take it seriously. If you do, I feel as though you might as well just paint one of those big Target store signs on your chest and say, "Here I am, send more poltergeist stuff my way." It's all about creating an effect, I think. And so if you just treat it like a 2-year-old that's misbehaving and just go, okay, we're not going to pay attention to that as long as, it's nobody's getting hurt, we're just ignoring it. I think that's the fastest way to make it stop.
And then cross your fingers.
And cross your fingers, absolutely.
So let's say you find you have a ghost in your house. Uh-huh. Would it be a good course of action to call some kind of professional in to get rid of it, exterminate it?
Oh, what an awful term!
I'm thinking, like the bugs, the bug exterminator. Sorry.
Yeah.
Roach Motel. I don't know.
Who are you going to call? If somebody is worried about what is there, or they are feeling terribly sympathetic, and if they're worried about their own safety or their own mental health, or somebody in the house is worried about this, then definitely call in a professional. If you are feeling as though you have an entity there that needs help, that the invisible entity, ghost, whatever it is, needs help, that's another time to call in a professional. But if you just have a ghost and it's not bothering you and it doesn't seem to be terribly upset about you being there, I would just keep going on doing what you do.
Cool. So you don't really have to do anything? What about, befriending it? Is that a good idea, or is it better just to kind of leave it alone?
That's a tough call, because years ago when I was in Scotland, and I was one of the early investigators down in the tunnels beneath the streets of Edinburgh, I encountered a little girl ghost. And I later found out that people had gone and left dolls. They heard the story. They went and they left dolls and toys for it. And that just tore me up because, in my opinion, then that gives reason for that spirit to linger there longer. Now she has toys there. It's like, oh, no, don't do that. So, because I would be happier if she were to just move on to whatever is next in her sequence of her life experience. And I do tend to use life as an eternal kind of thing, because people sometimes correct me and say, no, she's dead. And it's like, well, that's a word we use, but it's not like life stopped. It's just the body did. In terms of befriending, then we get into that gray area where you don't want to give the spirit yet one more reason to hang around instead of moving on to its next life experience, whether it's here or on the other side. On the other hand, I would think it would be really insulting to be completely ignored if you are cohabitating with the living in a house or, a business place or something like that. So I think it's important to acknowledge the spirit. Where you take it from there, I frankly would probably bring in somebody who's a psychic that I trust to evaluate the situation and say, sure, she's here, she's fine. She just wants to just hang out here for a while, so, she knows she can cross over when she wants to, so go ahead and be her friend. Or, or say, no, this one needs an intervention to cross over, so why don't we bring in a couple of people who can help with that. That's the point where I think I would bring somebody in.
Okay, but see, I like that word acknowledge, and I think that's a better word than befriend them. I mean, because I don't know that I'd want to, hang out and drink a beer with them. But,
Yeah.
But, like Tom would run around the backyard and be like, hey, Tom.
Yeah, I think
that was pretty much it.
Yeah, I think that's important. I run into that a lot with people who have fairies, and they're being driven absolutely crazy by them because they can see them out of the corner of their eye, and these are different from ghosts. And I just say, okay, I saw that. Just acknowledge that they're there, and that's usually enough to get the nuisance stuff to stop. So I just think you need to be polite, and you need to figure that it could be a ghost. It could be something else. It could be something else in a parallel realm that you're simply perceiving in our realm, and they might feel a whole lot more comfortable if they are simply acknowledged.
when would you draw the line? I mean, you said, well, you could have somebody come in and evaluate the ghost, but let's say you don't really decide to do that right away. Is there a point where people should kind of mentally make this little note that they should draw the line and definitely call in some help to, I'm going to say, get rid of it?
That one is a really tough call, and it's so easy to slip into a codependent situation with a ghost, just as it is with people. I think that you need to be doing a regular reality check with yourself to see, is this getting a little too weird? And maybe get professional help for yourself with the situation. Because it's not just all on the ghost. If you start relying a little too much on your invisible friends, you really need to get some spiritual or professional help for yourself as well. And that's such a broad scope. It's really hard for me to address it as a theoretical kind of thing.
Well, no, I'm just saying, so let's say you have, activity going on, your keys are missing, things are getting knocked over. Is there a point? I mean, I'm sure there's going to be individual decisions being made, but just kind of, because people don't know when they should even start thinking that enough is enough.
If
with
it's
the
intruding
ghost,
in your life,
misbehaving ghosts.
yeah, if it's intruding in your life enough to be an inconvenience, then you need to get some help. And that is whether it's on you or whether it's on the ghost. If it's intruding in your everyday life, I mean, the key thing generally that's fairies, and all you need is an iron nail as part of your keychain, because generally fairies don't like iron. And I know how crazy some of this stuff sounds, but there it is. But the hiding the keys thing is usually fairies. The knocking over stuff, the destructive things, I have no patience with ghosts who do that. None whatsoever. So if something, poltergeist phenomena occurs, or a ghost does something that is destructive to my environment or to me personally, I will talk to them out loud and say, okay, don't do that. Do that again, and I am having somebody come in and deal with this. And that usually is enough to make it stop. Sometimes you have to talk to them repeatedly. But if it gets so that it's wearing on your nerves, or you are having things broken, oh yeah, I would call somebody in a blink and say, this has got to be addressed because this is not going to continue. And maybe that third party can negotiate a truce between the two of you, or maybe that third party can help the spirit find their own home, their own realm, their own place where they are supposed to be next.
Perfect. I'm looking at the clock, so we have about 7 minutes here. All right, I'm really curious about this fairy thing. So if we have time at the very end, you can maybe spend a couple of seconds on that, because we've never done a show on that.
Oh, we can do another show on fairies. Yeah, because I have a website, fairymagic.com, that's about fairies.
Okay, but let me ask this question, then we'll kind of come back to that just as a teaser. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Are there things that we can do? I mean, we've talked about a couple of things, acknowledge them like that. But if, let's say they're hanging around and, I don't know, are there things we can do to clear the environment and maybe try to see if they want to take their next step, or without calling in professional help?
Okay, if you are sensing that the entity is there and you have an emotional reaction to what's going on with them, chances are that you're more psychic than you realize. And so then it is a matter of talking out loud. I don't encourage people to try and bring the energy into their body, because that's going down a dangerous road. But just talk out loud and just see if you get an emotional sense in reaction to the things that you say out loud, such as, do you have unfinished business? Is there something that I can do to be helpful so that you can move on? Just talk like you would if the person was physically there in front of you. And I think that is a reasonable step for somebody to take if they are sensing this kind of stuff. If they're just dealing with an out-and-out antagonistic territorial ghost that's driving them up the wall, incense works, vacuuming works. vacuum every corner of the room where you're experiencing the most activity, and that includes up by the ceiling. This is a feng shui kind of cure. You can use a singing bowl. There are all kinds of approaches that you can use, and things may get worse for a couple of days afterwards, in which case go stay with a friend till the ghost gets over it and moves on. But if it gets dramatically worse, stop everything that you're doing, and that's where you bring in a spiritual healer, whether that is a priest, a minister, a shaman. It's somebody who is in tune with you spiritually, who is going to explore the possibility of this being something that's not a ghost, but is in fact a dangerous entity. And that's a wide open field. But I do not believe that ghosts become demons, and I don't like to use the demon word, but, if things become dramatically worse, like scary worse, when you try to deal with this yourself, do not stop. Go directly to somebody who can talk you through this, who is experienced as a spiritual healer of some kind that you have confidence in.
Yeah, and I think one of the search terms, like on the Internet, is spiritual releasement.
Ah, love that phrase.
What about, and I've heard this and I always laugh, brick dust and salt, putting salt in your doorway. Does that work?
Weirdly enough, it seems to. And I can't figure that one out for anything. When I was at the Myrtles and I desperately needed sleep because it was just a 3-ring circus there, I put my shoes down, toe to heel, next to each other. I've got a picture of this at Hollow Hill if people go looking for, I think if they just search on the word shoes, they're probably going to come up with the picture. And for some reason, that baffles ghosts, and they leave you alone because they're so busy being confused by the shoes turned in different directions. Grains of rice on the kitchen floor is another classic one. You've got different kinds of Native American artwork that you can hang in your windows. What are they called? The circle things, the dream catchers.
Dream catchers.
Yes, that's it. Those can sometimes be used. I don't even remember where I was going with this, but you have a lot of things that you can use that can be helpful.
My personal favorite is, I'm going to say like holy water, but it doesn't have to be like church holy water. I like say a prayer over some water,
yep.
Or maybe put some crystals in water, or, put it in the sun over, during the day, or, that kind of thing. And I like using a little spritzer bottle, and then how you vacuum, I like spraying. But I like the vacuum idea. I love that idea.
Oh, vacuum.
I never heard that.
It's great because you've got electricity, you've got noise, and you've got air movement. It is just one of, and if you've got a canister vacuum cleaner with a shiny metal tube, then you got metal involved as well. You got a whole lot of stuff going there that works with feng shui energy concepts, but it seems to do the job. The holy water thing I warn people about, because if it is something that is a negative entity, some of them, holy water just makes them angry. And so I go to that one. I used to recommend that one up front. Go to that one right away. And then I heard enough stories where that was a bad idea. But salt, I haven't heard a whole lot of stories about that one being dangerous. The vacuuming, yep, absolutely. Rock and roll music works for some people. The idea is to fill the space with positive energy, and I don't know why salt would do that. I don't know why the shoes in opposite directions would do that. I don't know why the dream catcher works. But these are all cures for disturbing, ghostly type energy stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think doing that whole, I like doing the healing part. I mean, I like going in to see what is there because, it's always different. And it's always, bizarre. All right,
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking at the clock. We got 45 seconds. So, Fiona, we talked about is your house haunted today, but we were also talking about ghost hunting in the general sense. Do you have a ghost hunting book that you could recommend or that you've written?
Okay, I've written Ghost Hunting in Haunted Cemeteries. It's one of Amazon's best sellers for anybody who wants to experiment with ghost hunting and see if they like it, because everybody's got a haunted cemetery around them. And so it's a good jump in the pool at the deep end way to discover whether or not you can enjoy this and whether it's something you want to pursue from a spiritual or a scientific angle. And talking about books, I have to say your book, Avoiding the Cosmic 2x4, has got some really good grounding information in it that people should explore before they get deeply into ghost hunting and over their heads.
Actually, my Power Within book is even better than that. But anyway, it's more hands-on than 2x4 book. Anyway, Fiona, there's the music. We got to go.
Okay.
So I will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That's Fiona Broome. Her website is FionaBroome.com, and we'll be back after these messages.
Just Energy Radio with your host, Dr. Rita Louise, will return right after these messages.